We had a young guy from New Jersey. I think he was like 24. And oh my God, I thought he was going to hit people around him. Because his arms were like, whew, every time he talked, it was like huge. And I was like, okay, look, you know what? How far do you sit away from your clients? Because you don't want to whack somebody. You're really going. He's like, oh, I'm just so passionate about this. I said, well, that's great. But you know what? Please watch what the person sitting across from you is doing. Because if you're flailing wildly and they look at you like you're nuts, you're not going to be able to go ahead and close that business. A lot of us work with more affluent people, and more affluent people roughly have the same jobs. They're generally entrepreneurs, higher level executives within organizations, or they're physicians or attorneys. So let's say it's a CEO of a widget company. So you say, you know what, John? You know better than I do about making widgets. And I'm sure you could tell me things and you could bore me to death about widgets, couldn't you? And they'll smile, yeah, I could. So I'm sure that you know that I know as much about the financial services industry. But I don't want to bore you with all of the details. Do you want me to do that? No, I don't. All right. Then let me give it to you as short, quick, and powerfully as I can. Do you want to retire at this date? Is this the income that you need? Let's go. After you think that you've gained rapport, you've matched their breathing, their pacing, their posture, their gestures, inflection, you've used their words, you're going to test it. I absolutely love doing this. We were doing this, and we're talking back and forth, and he's on his little Skypey thing, and he's sitting back, and I'm talking to him, and I moved in my chair, and he moved in his chair. I was like, I want to see if I can do this again. So I waited a few minutes, because, you know, Jedi mind tricks you can't use too often because the Force gets upset. And I did it again. And I told him about it. I said, why did you want to move? Were you uncomfortable? Was your leg falling asleep? And he said, no, I just felt it was the time to move. When I was in the Navy, some of this is going to sound a little off, just to warn you, I followed the Grateful Dead, which every time we were in port at that time in the early 90s, they were touring a lot. And they would tour, surprisingly enough, the West Coast while I was always at sea. And then for some reason they were on the East Coast every time I came back. I owned a 1977 pop-top orange Volkswagen camper. Hippie stickers all over it. Drove the base nuts. What's this hippie doing on our base? And I was on an ammunition replenishment ship. I was a petty officer second class. Had some rank underneath me. But let me tell you, man, when I got behind that huge steering wheel and grinded the gears into place and went to a Grateful Dead show, very, very different. We were all hanging out in my van. I won't tell you why. You can figure it out yourself. The top was open, so the camper top was popped. I was on the top bunk. And this guy runs to the door, opens the door, which was not a good thing to do, and he screams, they opened the gates. This was at Giant Stadium. I kind of leaned down, I was like, what? He said, they opened the gates. Let's go. All right. So, by the way, it's really hard to run in Birkenstocks if you didn't know that. So I'm running fast as we can with this herd of people. And they opened the gates. Third encore, I guess Giant Stadium decided it was okay. Third encore. So we're running up the stairs. If anybody's seen Giant Stadium, we're running and running and running and running and running. Finally, we get to the top. And we go down this corridor, and it's just a wall of people. I guess we weren't the first to know the gates were open. So my friend is standing here, and it was his first show. That's a big deal to deadheads. You have to experience it live. You have to see the show. You have to contact Jerry, okay? And so I said, it's his first show. And everybody parted, and he walked right down to the front.